I want to determine if the following are factors of this. So is x minus 1 a factor of that? Meaning if you factor this, would that be a factor? Would this be a factor? Would this be a factor? Now if you're dividing this and this becomes a factor, do you understand your remainder would be 0? Whenever you do long division and you divide, if it's a factor, it means you had no remainder. It divided evenly. So our goal is basically, will these give you a remainder of 0? Now to find that, you could do long division. It's better to do synthetic division and another method called the remainder theorem. So we're going to talk about two different methods. We're going to do remainder theorem and we're going to do synthetic division. I'm going to start with some remainder theorem. Remainder theorem states that if we take this, the value that would have been a 0, so what would have been a 0, and if I plug it into the function, the result that you get should be the remainder of when you divided it. So if you divide by x minus 1, that remainder should be the same as if you took the 0 that this creates and plug it in. So watch. What would be the 0 that this would create, this factor would create? The 0 would have been a 1. So what that's saying is I'm going to plug in 1 to the function. So my function is x cubed minus 2x squared minus 11x plus 12. And I'm plugging 1 into that every x. So again, I plug the 0 value, that would be a 0, so I'm plugging 1 into this function right here, and I do the math. And if my answer is 0, I know that x minus 1 is a factor. So 1 cubed is 1, 1 squared is 1, so 2 times 1 is 2. Negative 11 times 1 is negative 11, and we have a plus 12. Let's see, 1 minus 2 is negative 1, 11 plus 12 is positive 1, and that looks like it's a 0. Alrighty, so we know because we plugged it in, you get a value of 0 due to remainder theorem. That means that it is a factor. That your remainder is going to be 0 when you divided it. So is x minus 1 a factor? Yes, it is. So your answer is a yes to this one. That is a yes. Now I'm going to do it a different way too. I'm going to do synthetic division. And here's how synthetic division does it. I use the same number 1, which would have been the 0. And I'm going to do synthetic division, and I'm looking for a remainder of 0. So let's try it out. My 1 is what I'm plugging in. My values are 1, negative 2, negative 11, and 12. So let's do synthetic division. Bring down the 1. 1 times 1 is 1. Put it there. Add down. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. Add down. I get negative 12. 1 times negative 12, go here. So that would be negative 12. And then 12 plus negative 12 is 0. And see how that's a remainder of 0? See how that had a value of 0? Those should always be the same. So either way, you could plug the number in to the function, or you could do synthetic division and see what the remainder is. Either way is to tell if it is a factor. But in the end, you're just looking for it to be 0. Let's do the next problem. For this one, we're going to plug in what makes this 0 a negative 1. So we're going to be plugging negative 1 into this, and we're going to do negative 1 with synthetic division. So here we go. Let's do plugging in. So if I plug in negative 1 cubed minus 2 times negative 1 squared minus 11 times negative 1 plus 12. Take some space right there. Alright, so that would end up with, it looks like, negative 1 cubed, be careful, that's actually negative 1. Negative 1 squared is 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. Negative 11 times negative 1 is positive 11, and plus 12. Now, if you have good number sense, look at this. Is that going to equal 0? Because aren't we looking for the answer of 0? No, because that's going to be a big number. That's going to be a little dead negative. So I know right off this is not going to be equal to 0. But just for the sake of practice, let's get the value. -1, -2 is -3. 11 plus 12 is positive 20. So that gives us, 23, sorry. So -3 plus 23 is positive 20. So that is not 0, so this is a no. It is not a factor. Let's do synthetic division to show it doesn't work there either. Synthetic division, you're doing -1, and you're doing 1, -2, -11, and 12. Again, you're just taking the same numbers because you're coming from these coefficients. And doing synthetic division, so bring the 1 down. -1 times 1 is -1. Add down, you get -3. -1 times -3 is positive 3. Add down, that would be -8. And -1 times -8 is positive 8. Add down, you get 20. Do you notice how the remainders are actually the same? The value for this is the remainder for this. It's kind of cool. They're always the same. Okay. Now, for this one, you notice it's not 0. For this one, you know it's not 0, so we know it's not a factor. Where these were zeros, so it was a factor. Okay, one more time. Let's check if x plus 2 is a factor. So to do this, we're going to plug in -2, because what would have made this 0 is -2. So let's plug it in. We have -2 cubed minus 2 times -2 squared minus 11 times -2 plus 12. All right, -2 to the third, -8. -2 squared is 4. -2 times 4 is -8. All right, -11 times -2 is positive 11, and you have a 12. So if you look at this, you can hopefully tell that that's not 0, so I can tell right off. If you can't tell it's not 0, just let's do the math. That's -16 and 23. Oh, I made a mistake. A -11 times -2 is positive 22. Correct? Made a mistake right there. This should be positive 22. And when you add those, shouldn't that give you 34? So you got a 34 here. Alrighty. Then, any questions? Hopefully not. Then you combine those. So 36 minus 16. 34 minus 16, sorry. 34 minus 16, I believe, is at 18. So that would be it. Now let's check it with synthetic division. We're going to plug in -2. We're going to do 1, -2, -11, and 12. Bring down the 1. -2 times 1, bring in the 1. -2 times 1 is -2. Add that down, you get -4. -2 times -4 is positive 8. Add that down, you get -3. -2 times -3 is positive 6. 12 plus 6 is 18. Do you see how these agree? But they're neither 0, so this is a no. This is not a factor. It is not a factor. So the only one in this problem is this. That's the only factor of these choices. You can keep trying whatever you want. These are not. So again, you get to choose. If you want to plug the value in or use synthetic division, whatever works. There are times where one's better than the other. Now, when you do this one, just remember, all you're looking for is if it's 0 or not. That's it. This one, you have to get all the way to the end and see if it's 0. Good luck.